I have mixed feelings about DC superhero girls. On one hand, an animated series focusing on the female superheroes of the DC universe is something that was long overdue. There is a ton of potential for interesting stories with this concept. But did they have to make a setting where all the main characters are in high school? Maybe it's just my own dislike for the high school setting, but a de-aged setting like this sounds like it should be the follow-up to a previous cartoon series. You know, like a certain other cartoon show that's been talked about way too much. Nonetheless, a patron has requested I review this, but it's not that easy to do given this relatively new franchise already has multiple entities that aren't necessarily connected to one another. It apparently started out as a web cartoon, then it got a series of direct-to-video movies, and now has a regular series on Cartoon Network that premiered in 2019. Maybe I'll look at the TV series once it's gotten time to age, but for now I guess I'll take a look at one of the 3 animated movies made prior to it. And yeah, there's kind of a reason I picked this one. Let's look at DC Superhero Girls Intergalactic Games. The movie begins at what I assume is this cartoon's version of the Max or Central Park, which is immediately under attack by evil robots. You know, maybe naming your coffee shop Capes and Cowls was kinda asking for something like this to happen, just saying. This draws the alert of Batgirl, Supergirl, and Bumblebee, forcing them to interrupt their training for the Intergalactic Games. They spring into action just in time for Supergirl to save this blonde kid.
Stay here, Steve. You'll be safe.
Steve? Wait a minute. Steve Trevor? Wonder Woman's original love interest? Why are you pairing him with Supergirl then? Oh, good night. Don't tell me they have a love triangle story in this series. Speaking of Wonder Woman, she joins the party along with Flash and Starfire, who immediately gets on my nerves because she talks like the Krang from the Nick Turtle series, or maybe Ruby from The Land Before Time.
You shall not do that on the watch that is mine.
Oh, and from what I've researched, Starfire debuted on this series in an episode called Tween Titans. You know, I really want to like this show. Why is this movie trying right at the start to be more insipid than Teen Titans Go? As if to drive that home, Wonder Woman gets a phone call from her mother in the middle of a fight. Diana, I think Hippolyta would understand if you need to let her go to voicemail. Anyway, it's clear very quickly the robots are designed to beat the girl's superpowers, so Batgirl decides to scramble their programming by magnetizing the Batwing and Supergirl's spaceship. Wait, Supergirl fixed the spacecraft that brought her here from Krypton? Kara, there's another alien in LA named Gordon who could use your expertise!
Oracle, remote pilot Supergirl's spaceship to these coordinates.
Yeah, this Batgirl, who clearly is Barbara Gordon, named her AI assistant Oracle. Given my own complex views on how Barbara was treated in the comics with the Killing Joke and beyond, I really don't know how to respond to that. So it's revealed the robots were actually built by a teacher at the school who gets him in trouble with the principal, Amanda Waller.
I can't have teachers building evil robots, especially not now with all the scrutiny around the games.
You know what? I'm with Waller on this one. My younger self who grew up on Justice League is agog.
But what if they were fighting villains instead? If the robots could make good choices, then they could be superheroes. Overnight, we could double, triple the number of certified superheroes and stop evil worldwide.
Are we sure this guy's name isn't Ted Lawson? This is pretty much the basis of Small Wonder. And I think a third of the sci-fi horror films ever made. Batgirl says the robots are corrupt and should be destroyed, so the disposal duty is handed off to Lena Luthor. Okay, full disclosure. I don't know a ton about this character's history in the entire DC universe, but let's just say she's had even more incarnations than Supergirl. All you need to know is that here, she's Lex Luthor's little sister, and she's basically a female version of him. Right down to being actually bald from her own experiments to gain superpowers, which is why she's jealous of and hates all the real superhero girls. For the record, I do kinda like the idea that a villain has managed to infiltrate a superhero school with them having no suspicion. It's an interesting twist on the whole superheroes infiltrate the villain's lair thing. I also will say this, her character design here really reminds me of Chloe from Smallville, which, given what was revealed of the actress that played that character, yeah, this gives her a whole new level of disturbing. So everyone is getting ready for the Intergalactic Games against Corridor High, which is overseen by Sinestro and includes the likes of Lobo, Bleez, and Starfire's sister Blackfire. Yeah, their family connection is a bit of a plot detail here.
Welcome, Holly fans, to your Holly's quintessential play-by-play of the opening ceremony for the Intergalactic Games!
You know what? I've dealt with Jerry Lawler on WWE commentary. I can handle this. That's something else that's confusing. Harley, Poison Ivy, and Star Sapphire are all in this movie, but while they're supposedly villains in the TV series, I'm not really sure what they are here. This is the problem you deal with when hotness prevents you from keeping female villains as villains. And then the party gets crashed by Granny Goodness and the Furies. Yeah, Granny found out about the source of Doc Magnus's robots, the Responsometer, because I guess the Doc bragged about it on his blog. So now she's charmed her team of Furies into the games as a ploy to find the Responsometer for themselves. We get an obligatory food fight at the Intergalactic Banquet, secretly instigated by Lena's Living Rock of Kryptonite. That's basically a filler piece used to ultimately introduce us to the MacGuffin that will play a part in the ending, before we finally get to the Intergalactic Games themselves. And now I can finally bring up just why this movie in particular drew my interest. If you're a millennial or younger, chances are you're comparing this movie to Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. If you're an old guy like me, however, something else has probably sprung to your mind while seeing this. This is the Laugh Olympics! No, really. Tell me this entire concept isn't basically the Laugh Olympics put in the setting of the DC universe. Only here they've kind of forced the audience to root for the heroes team by giving us two versions of the really rottens. I guess it could have been worse. They could have given us a Yogi Yahoo's team made of the sidekicks, or worse, the damsels. In between the games, Granny and the Furies try to steal the Responsometer, but the heroes somehow just knew what she was going to do and stop her. Though I do like this line being thrown in during the fight.
I should have finished you off last time!
Was that actually a reference to the old comic series that brought back the old Supergirl? Whatever. The Furies get arrested and are now out of the games, but it turns out this was all actually set up by Lena so she could get the Responsometer herself. I was at first going to joke about if her father was David Xanatos, but let's just say some things she does later call that into question. At any rate, it turns out Lena may be being controlled by someone else. After a stage of the games meant to pander to the BattleBots crowd, which temporarily gives Superhero High the lead in the standings, Corridor wins the penultimate event to tie the series, only because Supergirl and Starfire have to forfeit to go save a bunch of humans from a fire. You would think a sporting event hosted by a superhero school would have set aside some rule allowing an excuse for an emergency like that. But one of the apparent reasons for throwing this in is to show the results of Starfire being a hero to her sister, and I'm sure this has nothing to do with the film's climax at all. So we get to the final event with a full third of the movie left to go, And it looks like it's going to be some type of soccer, hockey, lacrosse mashup with superpowers that might be pretty awesome to watch, except we don't get to see it because this is when Lena springs her trap. Jeez, Lena, could you have at least waited until halftime?
Think about it, Metropolis. That robot attack was because of the supers. Eclipso, Dark Opal, the female Furies. Supervillains target our city because these supers are here.
Hey, that's not true. You're wrong.
Join my side and we'll free Metropolis of supers.
Never! The superhero saved me!
Me too. I'm with Superhero High.
Superhero High! Superhero High!
Well, that settles it, people! The humans in the DC world are smarter than the humans in Marvel.
Kryptonites, attack!
Yes, here is my evil scheme to destroy all the superheroes! I will build an army of robots operated by little monsters made of the material that only harms my number one foe! But I will not include that material as part of my own battle suit, thus leaving my nemesis free to come after me while all her friends not affected by kryptonite can take out all my minions. Okay, maybe I didn't think this thing through. Oh well, I'll just take a hostage and use that to distract her, so my minions can bombard her with kryptonite rays. Good thing her friends hadn't taken out all of them yet.
Can we magnetize the bots like before?
No, they're not powered by computers. They're powered by kryptonites. We need the anti-K juice.
Okay, I was originally going to ask why they couldn't just smash the kryptonite robots, since that had worked so far. But I guess it makes sense they would have to eventually neutralize the mites with their anti-K juice in order to protect Supergirl completely. Even still, there's no lead on campus whatsoever they could use just to shield her from the rays? Just saying, this could have been a lot simpler. This leaves Wonder Woman free to take out Lena's suit, but save her from the intergalactic flame because she has to be the better person. But we still have more than 10 minutes to go here, so I'm guessing it's not all over.
Pity it's come to this. Now I must reveal myself.
No, you don't.
Hello, Supers. Allow me to introduce myself.
Yup! Turns out Lena was being controlled by Brainiac all along. Just taking up after her brother. So the final battle is against a giant mecha. I'll give this movie credit, they're covering all the bases here. Lena won't help out even though Brainiac flat out double-crossed her. So it's up to Batgirl to try and figure out his weakness.
Let's blast this bot back to the pit it was mined from. Huh?
I don't see any obvious targets, but my X-ray vision isn't working on that skull thing. Must be lead-lined. Bumblebee discovered I can't see through. Ah!
Lead-lined armor and kryptonite rays. Who'd have thunk Brainiac would have been smarter than a Luthor?
Suit her up!
What is this?
Super suits are my specialty. It'll keep you safe from kryptonite.
As for the climax, I really don't want to accuse this movie of going really girly, but yeah, they go the power of friendship route. Because the robot Platinum had the responsometer, it taught her human emotions like love, so she's able to break free of the Brainiac bot and let herself be used as a conduit for all the Super's powers at once, sacrificing herself in the process. Did I mention the person in charge of this franchise was Lauren Faust? So they destroy the robot, Superhero High wins the Galactic Games since Korugar forfeited the last match by fleeing the scene, Platinum gets rebuilt because consequences are icky, and Brainiac lives to fight another day, even though he doesn't appear in the final movie of this series. My snark aside, this wasn't really that bad. The animation is really good, especially compared to the downgrade the TV series gets. And while I would like to see an animated series focused on the heroines as adults, something akin to Justice League Unlimited meets the live-action Supergirl, this is still competently written for the most part, and does treat its audience with respect. It's not the DCAU of the 90s, but it's not Teen Titans Go either. It's actually pretty impressive how much DC's productions have been of late when they focus on the women over the men. Looking at you, Wonder Woman vs. Man of Steel!